Welcome to Modern Goddess. Here we discuss everything mastering your mindset, wellness wisdom, upgrading your relationships so that you can unleash your divine goddess essence and live your authentic best self every single day. I'm your host, Cassie Aurora. Welcome back. I'm so happy you're here with me again today, and I really want to thank you for showing up and returning to the podcast time after time, because if you're anything like me, there's a lot of podcasts you follow, and if you click on this one and listen to this, then that makes me super happy. So I am really excited for today's episode, but before we get into it, I'm interested. Are any of you guys having crazy dreams right now? I mean, I know we've got the eclipses and the full moons, and this month is basically the big turning point. If you didn't listen to the last episode, I strongly encourage you to, because it's a game changer month. But even I've noticed my one-to-one clients are telling me oh, I'm having these crazy dreams. So I'm just curious, if you're having crazy dreams, let me know. Drop me a message on Instagram. Let me know I'm not the only one. Or is it just something that me and my Empowered Empress group, coaching group, are going through? Who knows? It's quite funny though. I had a dream I was Donald Trump's sex slave. What the fuck? Oh, it's interesting times, and so there's a lot going on, and processing all of those weird things right now. If you're in a big rebirth cycle, then I totally understand that. In life, I think there's certain points where it's simple breezing, and then there's certain points that are just chaos and change and shifting. And so in these kind of times, I think it's when we want guidance and support. And you guys know I'm here to support you. And don't forget that this month, at the end of the month, is when I launch my Empowered Empress group coaching program. This is an accessible way for people that perhaps really want to access coaching, but they'd rather have a group coaching atmosphere than one-to-one with me. And it's really a way that we're going to work together for 6 weeks to basically give you the tools to dive deep into those inner limitations, traumas, self-destructive behaviors, shame, so that you can actually start realizing all of the parts of yourself that are kind of running the show and why your life is manifesting in a certain way. And so how I want to run this program is that we're diving deep week after week, and then you have tools to realize how you can actually change what you're experiencing, rewire your brain, heal on a soul level, and actually start to manifest a dream reality, one that you actually want. And really, this whole program is around that. So we have this group coaching program for those of you that really want the perks of one-to-one coaching, but it's just not for you right now. So the Empowered Empress program, I strongly encourage you to let me know if you're interested, because I don't know when I'll run this again, and I'm only running it with limited spaces. And it's a program where really you're in the group, then the community for life. So if you're interested in being in that and something in your body's yeah, I want to do that program, then please do just contact me and we'll book in a little call where I can tell you more about the program. We can get to know each other, and I can, see if it's the right fit for you. You can work out if it's the right thing for you as well. And yeah, I would love that. So please let me know by emailing me at hello@cassieaurora.com, or message me on Instagram at I am Cassie Aurora, and I'll tell you how we can book that chat in. And I just I really cannot wait to meet you, and I know you're going to love this program. So let's get on to today's guest. Today's guest, Victoria, is here to talk about human design. Now, Victoria, I actually know because she was in my business coaching network group, and I I absolutely love her. And she's like me, but she's the human design version. So I blend a lot of human design into my readings. But if you want to get really deep into it, Victoria is your person. She's a human design reader and coach, and she supports women to find their unique flow. She used to work in the tech industry and thought she was doing everything she was supposed to in her career, but her health was a wreck. She's a projector like me, so yeah, she ended up having to take medical leave, and then she got the wake up call that she'd created this life that really wasn't serving her. And so, a bit like me in my awakening, she found human design, I found astrology, and you'll discover they're not so dissimilar. For her, it changed her life. And really, it helped her connect to her intuition, be in alignment with her natural energy, and she really felt like she was coming home. So now, she guides professional, growth orientated women to do the same so that we can all live with a bit less hustle and a bit more flow. And she literally she's my girl because she gets the energy. She's always in that space with me, telling me it's okay to rest, the same as I tell my lovely clients it's good to rest. She's a great, great, great woman, and I really hope you enjoy this podcast. Give her a follow, let me know what you think, and yeah, I really, really hope that you let me know what you think of this podcast and you follow Victoria. And in the meantime, if you want to book a reading with Victoria, go ahead. I cannot wait for you to hear this podcast. So without further ado, let's welcome her on. Do you not find like one-to-one coaching super energizing as well?
It's hard to describe how it feels. Like, I just know I feel really great when I'm in a one-on-one conversation, because as projectors, like, that's how our energy is. It's like this, like, I don't know, I'm like thinking of like a spotlight like on someone else, right? Versus a generator, they're more just like glowing in 360 and people kind of come to them. It's like for us, it's like boom, lock in, and then we like totally get a person or a system or a thing, life, whatever. We have all the answers.
Yeah, penetration.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed, like I was saying, something that since we spoke, I've really noticed is that I am constantly taking on energy from stuff around me, but I never got it until I became aware of it. And I was like, shit, like my partner, like depending what mood he's in, it will affect me. Like the energy that I'm around, and it's more than being an empath. It's literally I take that energy on, I move it, and then I can get to the end of the day. And if I'm alone too long, I'm not making my own energy. I've really realized that. I'm like, shit, like
I love this observation.
I want to be
Because
alone all the time because
yes,
everything's fucking tiring as a projector. But then I get with my client and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy.
yeah.
But then I want to be alone because I'm like, I wake up and I'm alone and then I'm like, I want to be alone. But then when I'm around people, I feel better. And I'm like, this is a head fuck.
Yeah. Well, I think, okay, this is such an amazing observation. I love it so much because I think as projectors, if we grow up, which most of us have because we don't have parents that understand human design, if we grow up in a situation where we feel like we have to keep up with everyone and like keep our energy high, then it feels draining, right? Like, of course we don't want to be doing that all the time because it's out of alignment. But I think what I've seen and what I've experienced is, as for projectors specifically, we come to understand our energy and we allow ourselves to totally, go in and then get a hit and then also retreat and not feel bad about it. That's when we really like start to reframe what being around people is like. But I think I completely agree. Like for so much of my life, it's like, I don't want to be around people, but then if I'm by myself, like all weekend, things start to get weird. I'm just like, all in my head, like, who am I? And yeah, no, there's no external input, which we do need. We need some of that sacral juice.
I need sacred juice. I've got none of my own, and I've realized, shit, like I need. I never thought that. I always thought I feel better alone. But my partner, he's got a clearly defined sacral. He
Mm,
generates loads of energy. He can eat loads of food, and
yes.
he'll store it.
Yep.
If I did that, like, oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
And
You'd
yeah,
be so cranky.
I just. But when I eat a bowl of porridge, I feel really good, and that's quite heavy. I feel really good.
Mm.
When I don't eat, I've noticed I start to get scatty and really
Mm-hmm.
depressed. And if I look at other, okay, this is weird. If I look at like everyone in this household is generator or MG, well, they're all generators apart from Alex. But if I look at them eating big meals, I can't eat big meals, but I get really upset when they are because I'm like, I want to be able to do that and store that energy. But like, I know it makes me feel like shit. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is weird. It's strange. So anyway, let's get into things because I started recording because I was so conscious that last time, God knows where the recording went. I can't. It's really depressed me.
It's
Um,
okay. This conversation will be better. No worries.
I know. I was thinking this is just going to be way better. So, um, Victoria, thanks for coming back on. Um, Listeners, what happened was we had Victoria on the podcast a while ago. Then, when I went to mix down the podcast, there was no recording. Like it was gone. And I remember distinctly stopping the recording and starting it again, but I know what happened, and it really upset me because it was yeah. So
I
we
feel like
got
it could have also just been Zoom too, because like that was right when all this was happening, like all of the
yeah.
pandemic stuff, and I think their technology, like I've heard people having bugs and stuff. So anyway, it's all good.
It's all good. But then I got really knackered, as you'll find out why, from Victoria projectors. Victoria's the best when you're like, I'm really not well enough to do this. I'm absolutely shafted because we're both going through this very intensive business coaching program with the amazing Christina. As a result, it's a lot of energy shifts. And then I was like, I'm so sorry, I need to rearrange. But because she's a projector, she was like, I get it. So, Victoria, do you want to introduce yourself to my lovely listeners?
Yes, hello. I'm so excited and happy to be here again, and I'm so just grateful to talk again. It's the best. Yeah, I'm just a bit about myself. I'm a human design reader and coach, and I came to human design about 3 years ago when I was living just super out of alignment with really like everything in my life. And when I learned about my design as a projector and all the more detailed information, it was like simultaneously such immense relief of like, oh, this is why I felt a little different, or this is why things always felt so hard. And then also this vision of the future of living a life of ease and in flow that I had genuinely never thought was possible. Like I kind of just always thought things would be a grind and a hustle, and I, was just weirdly tired all the time, whatever. And so when I did, it completely changed my mindset. And, obviously it took some time to have that awareness translate into integration and then action. But now I recently left a corporate job and I'm doing this full time, and it is so rewarding. It fills me up so much. And I truly believe that this is something that can change anybody's life, because really what it is human design gives us a template to come back to how we came to be with our energy, how to exchange our gifts with the world, what it's like to live in ease, to trust our own intuition. So, yeah, I'm just excited to talk more about this. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I love it that you took human design, and this is what happens. Like, it's so validating. That's what I love about human design. And as you said, you were like, oh, I'm really out of alignment. But had you not had human design, how would you have known you're out of alignment, you know? And that's the power
Totally.
of it.
Totally. Like That's the thing. It's like whenever I read someone's chart, they're like, "Oh my gosh," like yes, and I see them smile. I see them like recognize themselves in what I say, or they'll remember like, "Oh my gosh, this is how I always was as a kid," or whatever it is. But sometimes, until we have the language to articulate something, it's kind of fuzzy, right? So for me, like I knew I was out of alignment because I had a lot of health issues, but I thought it was just like a physical thing. I didn't realize like, oh, I'm physically ill and stressed because I'm out of alignment with like who I am energetically, you know?
Yeah. Like, and I think, I mean, I know we're going to get into the types, but I definitely think as a projector, we find out through ill health. I don't know. I think I don't know one single projector that found out they were, even if they didn't find out at the time, they're like, oh shit, that's why I was so poorly.
Yeah. Well, because I think part of it is we are transitioning, I think as a global collective, which is wonderful, even though things feel crazy right now. We are shifting, but I think we're coming out of a time when things were more hierarchical. People who were successful tended to all be, we'll talk about this, tended to typically be manifestors. And most of the people who set up, the corporate world or the working world, industrial revolution, factories, all this stuff, tended to be more generators and MGs. And so even being a projector, I mean, projectors, do you remember the year they discovered Pluto, Cassie? It was like 18 something.
It was
Um,
when the age of Aquarius, I think, started happening around that time.
Yeah, so it was only like around then that projectors even exist as a type. So we're still, in terms of like existing in society, we're only like a few hundred years old. So there's also that, which is like people don't even really get us. Um,
Are we ruled by Pluto, projectors?
no, it's the
Oh,
fact that the discovery of this additional planet kind of like brought a new consciousness, and so
oh,
yeah. So not that we're ruled by it, although I don't know that much about astrology, but just that the discovery helped change our perception and our consciousness. So there was an additional kind of like flavor invented, if you will.
wow. Like,
Yeah.
I love that because, so basically, projectors are the new age.
Yeah. And also talking more about the new age, we're moving from, rulership of, hey, like I'm the person in charge, you have to listen to me, to who can really guide the energy. So projectors are actually really the ones that are meant to step up in this new age. And we're in that shift right now.
That feels so right. Victoria, you've just confirmed what I've been talking about in astrology. I love that. So
Yeah.
so let's, because I don't want people to think we're speaking Japanese or something, you know. Um what about you share, I mean, you've already kind of spoke about what human design kind of does a little bit. Do you want to talk about first what it is and
Yeah.
then maybe the five types?
That sounds perfect. So, human design, I talked a little bit about kind of why I think it's so helpful, which is that it just gives us a template for how to live in alignment with ourselves. And to describe it a little more kind of explicitly, it borrows or uses four different systems. It uses astrology, but also the Kabbalah, the I Ching, and the chakra system. And it pulls it all together into a chart. So it uses your birth date time to tell you about your unique like energy and your unique energetic gifts and skills, and then also quite a bit on personality. And if you go even deeper, it has like nutritional and like schedule information. So it's like there's a lot of layers, and it spans from like quite practical to more conceptual as well. There's a lot about like purpose, and so I'll work with clients on clarity around career, but also relationships, because all of a sudden you look at two people's charts and that's the whole thing. What else?
That's what I want
Manifestation.
from you.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I want.
We
I've
all have to look
decided
at, totally. We'll have to do the couple comparison.
we'll do that.
Uh, yeah. So anyway, so that's an overview. And the first thing to know about your human design chart, and you can pull up your free chart, and I'm sure Cassie, you can link it in the notes. You can pull up your free chart with your birthday time. And the first thing you want to look at is what type are you? And type refers to what energy type you are. And there's 5 different ones within human design. So there's 3 that are considered energy types. And so these are people who, when you're doing something you love, you create more energy. Like you get excited by it, it fills you up, charges you. And those three types are manifestors, generators, and manifesting generators. And then there's two additional types called non-energy types. And so those are projectors and reflectors. So I'll just keep going and I'll start with the
I'm like,
manifestor. Yeah.
go for it. So I've
Yes.
recently had loads of well, 4 of my new coaching clients are manifestors. And I'm
Love
like,
it.
oh, this is different. Meg Doll's a splenic manifester, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you both have the splenic authority, which we can get into too. Um,
Yeah, I love it. Okay,
yeah.
go.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. So manifestors. I start with them because they're the people who create and initiate action in society. So I like to use the analogy of like if we were all in a tribe together, right? We're walking through the forest and whatever we're exploring. Manifestors are the ones to be like, hey, we should stop here. We should make a fire there. And they have energy connected to their throat chakra. So they can say something and then it happens. And for them, like they're the only ones in society that are really able to just go out there, hustle, get after it. They're less than 10% of the population. So literally everybody else in human design um, needs to wait for something to happen before they take action. So that in and of itself is huge, right? If you're someone who feels like in order to be successful, you have to go after things and do it, and it has to be a struggle, and you have to like always make the first move, like it's not true. It's not true.
Yay.
Exactly. And so human design really invites us to just live with a little more surrender. Now, for manifestors, it is correct for them to initiate because they have this, the quality of their energy is quite spontaneous and they're here to be a leader in some way through the stuff they want to do. And it can be really fun too. Like I know a lot of manifestors as well. Like 2 of my best childhood friends are manifestors. I have more in my adult life that I know. And like one of them, she's so sweet and she's so fun. And randomly she just decided one day, like within our friend group, I want everyone to dress up in these tutus. And like she just like sent out an email, made it happen. And like, there's all of a sudden there's like 20 people in tutus. And that's just like such a perfect example of a manifestor, like having an urge and just owning it and doing it. Because a lot of manifestors growing up, right? It's like you have such a clear idea of what you want and how you want to do it, but there's all these adults around you saying like, well, you should really like, you're just a kid, you don't know anything, you should do it this way, or like, I know better than you. And so the conditioning or the sort of programming that gets picked up by manifestors, sadly, that's something to work through, is people pleasing, making themselves smaller, um, changing in ways that aren't authentic to themselves, because really we need them so much to be them, so they can say like, hey, I'm going to start this thing and then you can join me or not, and to not worry about upsetting people because that's not their job, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So in human design there's something called strategy as well. And so your strategy is, now that you know kind of your energetic purpose to start things, your strategy is how you want to share that with people. So for a manifestor, you want to initiate whatever feels correct, and then you want to inform, which means you tell people about it. Because if you think about like, all right, there are these manifestors with their big ideas, they're going to go do things, you want to make sure the right people join in. And so in order to do that, you got to speak up, right? So that's where the informing comes from.
Wow, okay. So I have a thing. I have a really close friend who I could have sworn down she was a projector.
Hmm.
Then I looked and I was like, you're a manifestor.
Well, why did you think she
Whoa.
was a projector?
Well, she was just very empathic and like very in her feminine, and but
Hmm.
then like and she's a splenic manifest, no, yeah, anyway, she was a manifestor and she was living out of alignment with it. And I was like,
Hmm.
literally, all you have to do in your business is like, do your manifest a thing. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
always felt that for her, but like, yeah, I always let her initiate with me, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I just felt like she was a projector.
Yeah, well, I think it brings up an interesting question of like, because I've also talked to projectors who are like, well, I don't identify with being a projector because I'm ambitious. And I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. um, I think there's a lot of ideas of what, because being a projector, there's a feminine essence of, we have all these insights to share, but we need to wait to see if people will really receive our gifts. And so there is this kind of more receptive quality. But I think we want to put this binary where it's like, well, if you're feminine in some quality or aspect, then you have to be that way everywhere. And it's like, you can be a really ambitious projector, but the way you tell people about your stuff might be less aggressive, right? But you can be like, 1,000% ambitious. And on the other hand, with a manifester, it's like, I think we hear about people initiating and we think that's very masculine and it has to be really like in your face, but you can be a very feminine manifester, right? And you can
Yeah,
just have these urges and own them in a way that's like so, soft and playful, and it doesn't have to be harsh. So, and it's similarly like, there are other parts of the chart where there's either like the arrows in your chart speak to different parts of your life and you can be more masculine or feminine flavored, but it can come up in any combination. You could be all left arrowed projector like you are. So that's
I
like
am. Yeah,
yeah, where you have like, maybe you want a more masculine container for your schedule. So you like more structure,
yeah.
but you're totally still a projector, right? And
Mm.
so all the combinations can come up and they don't have to be contradictory. It's just like, that's you. That's your unique mix.
It's all my left arrows. I'm like, no, it needs to be impossible. Okay. Manifestors. So let's talk about generators and MGs.
Yep. So generators and MGs, what they both have in common is that they have their sacral center defined. So if you look at the chart, there's a red square at the bottom, second from the bottom. And this square represents the second chakra sacral energy, which is the primal life force. And so 70% of the population roughly is either a generator or an MG, because we need this life force to get stuff done in the world, right? And everything in human design shows up in the exact proportions that we need so that we as a collective can survive. So if we had any less, like, we wouldn't have enough juice and energy to power the world, like we were talking about earlier. And so for them, their purpose is to really lift other people up with this sacral energy, right? When they do things they love, they get so excited by it. It's like they have an inner fire, and when they're in alignment and they're, eating the things they love and they're doing the work that they love and they're socializing with the people they enjoyed, they could just go all day. Like, they
I
love it so
know.
much.
I know. So my partner's a manifesting generator. It's like he's eating the food. He's like, whoa, and he's like,
Yes.
and I'm like, how? Like, literally how? Like, he could just go and go and go. I just get, honestly, and one thing I noticed about manifesting generators, particularly, it's like I need to get more excited with him, but it's really
Yes.
hard for me because I'm so calm, and sometimes
You're so perceptive.
I'm not ready to get excited with him, but I need to be. So I'm like, yeah, go on, babe. But really, then when I score something, I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he's not there. He's like, yeah, well done. And I'm just like, this is really
Oh,
interesting. So, because as me as a projector, I want to be recognized. So I want him to be like,
yes.
yeah, with me. But he needs me to be excited with him. And I'm like, shit, neither of us doing this.
I love this so much, Cassie. You have the best observations. Yeah, because my partner is an MG as well. And
Oh,
we talk about like we talk about like, as a kid, he was like, yeah, it was like really, I was really sad when my parents wouldn't get excited about like the things I was interested in. And yeah, there's this part of them, it's like they're generating this energy and they just want to have more excitement. So it's like
yeah.
this looping back.
Yeah.
But then similarly, like if I get excited about, usually it's like a work thing or someone asks me for advice and they say I'm so helpful and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so great. And he's like, yeah, duh. I'm like, no, 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 this means a lot to me. Let's celebrate it. So it's so funny you say that. Yeah. So generators and MGs, exactly. It's like they have this really warm, like glowiness, and you might feel this like when you're around, all the generators and MGs in your life, because they have the sacral energy. They, being around them, we can be more productive, more efficient, more excited. We just, we get so much done. Um, but the key thing for them is, in order to really utilize this sacral energy appropriately in the highest good for all, right? They need to only take action when they're actually excited by something. Because
Yeah.
so they need, this is the wait to respond strategy, because If you are a generator or an MG and you genuinely don't want to do something, right? But you force yourself to do it anyway, which is very simple to do because, we've all been told like, oh, you need to like sacrifice or just like grow up and like do it. Um, but what's happening is there's not energy being created inside of them. So they're not feeding themselves. And as a result, they're not, they're depriving everyone else around them of that juicy energy that they would be creating if they, said no, if they did something that was more in alignment. And so this is a thing I really want to emphasize for the sacral beings that are listening, because I think a lot of the time they hear, oh, well, just wait to respond, do what lights you up. And it's like, oh my gosh, well, that's so selfish. Like, I can't do that. And I want to reframe it because, listen, if your energetic purpose is to lift other people up with this sacral energy, but you're too scared to say no or authentically own what's in or out of alignment with you, then you're actually depriving people of that sacral energy because you're not creating it when you make those compromises.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I will say also for them, when you are saying yes to the things that should be no's, that sacral energy actually gets blocked up, right? It's like that fire has nowhere to go, or it kind of feels backlogged, and then that results in frustration. It's just this kind of like tenseness, right? Or like maybe a sluggishness, where that energy is misdirected essentially. So it's a time to reflect, to say, how can I make a change? How can I really own, what I need to say no to more, and learn from that.
That's so helpful, and especially like uh, because when they're in alignment, it's so freaking obvious with MGs. Like my partner, I'm like, when he's in alignment, it's so obvious. He's just got such a pleasant energy. Then
Mm-hmm.
when he's not fully in alignment, like I can tell, and it's not that he's like frustrated. It's like he's slightly grumpy or flat.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and he'll do stuff even though it's a no. He's saying yeah, and I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. But he definitely needs to work on that. So yeah, that's a thing I've noticed. Say no.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's a process, right? It's not like, hey, snap your fingers and you got to fix this tomorrow. But it's like another thing I want to point out is like, you're not, human design isn't like supposed to be another set of rules you just follow, right? It's
yeah,
really here for you to experiment with. So it's like in no way meant to be a burden, but simply, hey, would try this and maybe you'll feel like you have more energy, if you're able to say no to things.
yeah, that's a good point because like I remember last time we talked, and like you were talking about my digestive type being like
Mm,
warm, and like to eat little and often, and like I did that anyway, but like at the moment it's not working for me. Like I
mm,
need to be like, it just feels wrong, and it's making me bitter at meal
mm-hmm,
times. I'm like, I feel so resentful that you can eat all this nurturing food and I don't want it. And I was like, maybe I just need to go with the fact that my intuition is saying I need to be eating big amounts now. For what
mm-hmm.
reason, I don't know. And I was just like, yeah. Because, astrology, human design, we can get so caught up in the rules.
Totally. Well, I'll also say, pulling in the astrological bit, when planets go through transits, those transits affect our human design chart. Like
Yeah.
it'll actually activate certain gates and things. So you're like, you might be influenced to feel more like a generator or an MG in that moment. And so maybe
Oh,
you'll actually be able to, yeah. So that's like a whole nother layer of human design we haven't talked about.
I need to book in with you for this.
Yeah.
This is
Well, I don't actually know that much about the astrological side of things, but basically we would put in the date for the transits, and then we can pull up a different chart, and then we could see like what's getting turned on, if that makes
oh,
sense.
between me and you,
Yeah, we could figure it out.
I'm going through like a huge transit right now, which is like life changing. It's once in a lifetime. Some people don't even
Hmm.
get it in their lifetime. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's to do with that. Anyway,
Yeah. Or for just as another example, like Saturn return, that's a big one, right? Like I was an MG during my Saturn return.
you. I wonder
Yeah.
what I was. I think I was like a fucking reflector or some shit. I don't know what I was. I think I was just a projector, just like with no.
Other stuff.
I don't know what it was. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
I
so I
sold my
will.
car.
That's true. That's true. But you know what? It's what catapults us into the next phase. Also, you're in your profile, Cassie, you're a sixth line. You have a sixth line, remember? So
A hermit.
the first 30 years of your life are intense, right? It's like your school, you're learning by trial and error. But then once post Saturn return, it's like you get to back off a little bit and
I
enjoy
feel
it.
that now. I've got the
Totally.
second backlash of my Saturn return now, but I'm having a bigger transit. So I'm a Saturn return, but then I've got Pluto conjunct my Saturn, which is, I would say, deeper, and it's bringing up the final roots. It's like, oh my god,
Mm,
if my Saturn return wasn't enough, but it's also bringing loads of power, like as I
mm,
was telling you before the call, like my business is suddenly booming because Pluto is power. But before that, what people don't know is that I was on my knees with finances, and I was like, well, it's Saturn. There was nothing I could have done. It wasn't like I wasn't working. It was just like
mm,
everything would break, and then and then Saturn's like, what are you going to do? I sell my car, pay for a business course with Christina, then it comes back tenfold. So that's Saturn's like,
mm,
oh, okay, you listened. So it's
mm,
weird. Yeah. So
mm.
anyway, let's talk about so that's generators. This podcast
Yep.
is about me. It's about the people. So yeah, we're on to the best of the best
Yes.
projectors.
I want to say one last thing though, which is for MGs.
Oh,
You know, you also have sacrals, but Cassie, as you've touched on, like they're slightly different in the sense that they also have some manifestor energy. So they're a little more spontaneous. And the big thing for them is they want to allow themselves to pivot and to change their mind because what they get excited by, it's going to change more quickly
yeah.
than your generator. And so that's like, um, to really be discerning about continuing to prune away what doesn't work so that you can create space for new things to come in, similar vibe as the generator, but because things change so quickly for the MG, their excitement levels, they just need to always be reviewing that. Cool. All right, now on to projectors. So now we're talking about non-energy types. So projectors and reflectors, they could be doing their favorite thing in the world and they still need to take breaks. That's the that's the key thing.
It's so
And
hard.
I know. And projector, I mean, both of them, as well as manifestors, we all don't have sacral centers defined. And so that's kind of the reason why it's like there's not that life force being created when we're doing the things that we love. Conversely, because the sacral center is open, projectors are able to amplify and ride other people's excitement. So being around generators, MGs, can be really fun for a bit, and we can feel so great and get so much done. And then once we're alone, it's like, boom, maybe there's a crash or like kind of a coming back to really feeling whatever it is that we're feeling at that moment.
Yeah, that's so right. Like, if we have a call with Christina, I leave and I'm like, whoa, and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, I'm fucked.
Yeah. Well, and what's nice though, what I really appreciate about Christina though, is that she understands human design. And so this
Yeah.
can get woven into how we work because you've made this mistake. I've made this mistake of trying to live like a generator all the time. And it's totally great for in deliberate doses, right? Because that's how we actually get wise and we understand how to guide energy because we actually can taste other people's energy. But then we also need to make sure we get a time to come back to ourselves, right? So like sleeping alone sometimes can be really nice for that, to empty out
Mm,
this. Have you heard
yeah.
this?
Have you done that, like sleeping alone? Because obviously you've got
Mm-hmm.
an MG partner, and some nights, like, he's funny. He's like, your energy was off last night, and I didn't sleep well. And I'm like, I feel like it's based on his, and he's
Mm,
unconscious of it. Does that make,
mm,
I don't know, like he's got excess, like if he eats certain foods, okay, if he eats certain foods, this is weird. He doesn't sleep well, but it's only a few foods. But if that happens, I will feel it. But then he'll be like,
oh
"You didn't
yeah.
sleep well," like kind of blame me. I'm like, I
Well,
might be alone and
I
see.
could, I could see that because it's like your aura is the one that can't handle it, right? But he, with more energy centers defined, can get away with a little bit more, and he actually might not feel it. So it's almost like it might not even be unconscious, but it's just that like it's buffered in his system but not in yours. So for
Yeah.
me, I definitely do sleep. We sleep alone sometimes because I had like a whole medical thing last year where like insomnia and all this stuff, and so it just like I like wasn't fun to sleep around because I'd be waking up and all this stuff. And so um yeah, for me, I really enjoy it. I don't know, I just like having, because it's like I don't want to be disturbed, you know. And like for projectors, sleep is so so important. So anyway, that's something to experiment with. I don't think I explicitly said the reason. So because we have open sacrals, the the time when we can kind of empty out of that sacral energy most potently is at night, right? Because we're
Oh,
horizontal. It's like literally the energy is draining away. And so having, if you're a manifestor, projector, or reflector, having experimenting with that a little bit and seeing how that feels for you can be a really nice way to kind of like decompress.
that's interesting because, like, for me, definitely at night when I'm chilling out, I'm like, oh, I can finally relax. But I sleep like 10 hours, right?
Hmm.
It's quite a lot. But
That's
like,
like perfect for a projector though.
yeah, like I think it's enough. If I sleep less than 9 hours, I'm ratty. But like, what I did notice was like I like to have like cuddle and connection before bed.
Hmm.
Like I would like to literally cuddle someone all night. So that and that makes me sleep better.
Mm.
So that's weird as a
Yeah,
projector.
I mean, it doesn't have to be every night, you know. Maybe it's just like during a certain part of your cycle or something. You know, it's just like
Mm,
it's definitely not something, again, going back to the rules piece. It's like whatever feels best for you. Like if the
yeah,
cuddling helps you sleep most nights, but then you get like just like a 1 or 2 days a month or something, like it could be that. Because there's so many
yeah,
other things affecting, your energy, as you obviously know.
yeah, you're seeing my left arrows here right now. I'm like, ugh. Okay. So
so so the
project.
strategy for projectors, to bring it back, is because our energetic purpose, we're open and we can really take on other people's sacral energy. We're really good at also guiding it, right? Because now we understand, not just we understand so many different people's points of view because we can taste everyone's sacral energy. So we're here to guide. But if you imagine the analogy of the tribe where like the manifester has said, let's build camp, and then generators and MGs are like, what a great idea. They're so excited and they run around and they build everything. We're there saying like, hey, why don't you, move this rock over there? Why don't we like expand the size of the circle, blah, blah, blah. If we were just yelling those directions at people and they didn't really want to hear it, like, no one's going to want to listen. They're going to think it's going to fall flat, right? So the thing with how we exchange our gifts with the world is that we want to wait for an invitation, which there's a lot of subtlety there. It doesn't mean every time you share something, someone has to like explicitly ask you. It just means that you want to make sure there is space for whatever you're sharing to be received. Because as we know, with less energy, well, don't we want to use our energy smartly, right? We don't want to be just throwing things everywhere because, we feel like we have the answer, although I definitely understand that. um, we want to work smarter, not harder. And so it's like, all right, if I'm not going to be useful here, if no one's going to listen, I don't need to share that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
like that's
yeah,
helpful.
and for sure. um, and I know like last time we had talked about a situation where like you had been in a group of people and you wanted to share something, but no one had really, you could tell that no one was going to listen. So you actually took that energy and those insights and I think you turned it into like a post or something, right? And all
Exactly.
of us, yeah. And then all of a sudden, like that sparked a great conversation somewhere else. So sometimes it's also just like guiding the energy in a different way when we listen to whether there's an invitation or not.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I know it's definitely my partnership. If I have not got that energetic space and I somehow just my mouth comes out because I can see something about to happen, because we always can as protectors. I feel like we just know before things happen. We can see a catastrophe. But it's like if it wasn't asked for, it is not received well. So that's
Yeah, and sometimes it's someone else's mistake to make, right?
yeah, 100%. So
Yeah.
all right. So and then we have reflectors.
Yep. So reflectors, their chart is totally, all of the shapes or the chakras, or energy centers are totally open. So every part of their body where, anyone else could either be sending out information, they're receiving it. So they're so sensitive to their environment in a way where literally no one else can understand, because like we've never felt that before, right? But if you think about anywhere where you're open, and that's what a reflector is, and to really share how they're feeling, which is a reflection of everybody and everything around them. They literally reflect back to us how we're feeling, our, how we see ourselves, our values, all that stuff. And so back to the tribe analogy, they're the ones that have been, hanging out with people all day long. They're really, it's really important for them to have a community that they feel like they can be themselves, which is going to change every single moment. And then at the end of the night, when we have this beautiful camp built, like they're the ones, I always imagine them like at the fire, like telling the stories about the day. And we listen to the stories and we're like, oh yeah, that and it touches something within us about ourselves, right? And so reflectors are very special, and they're quite rare. They're only 1% of the population, because we don't, one person can cover like quite a big group of people to reflect back. And for them, when they go through life and when they're sharing what they want to share, because they're so susceptible to the environment, they actually want to wait a full lunar cycle before they decide anything,
Mm.
because they're where the moon is will actually affect how they're feeling. Similar to like we were talking about the transits and how that can affect our chart, because reflectors are so open, the moon's um, movement will also affect them as well.
Wow, I still haven't met a reflector. I've got a client who's a mental projector. She,
Okay.
but she's quite,
Yeah.
and I,
Reflector E.
yeah, all I do is ask her questions and then she talks and gets her own mind. But yeah, like I've not met a reflector. I'm curious, who's a famous? Do we know any reflectors?
So do you know the Balanced Blonde, Jordan Younger?
She a reflector?
She's a reflector. And
Wow.
it's interesting because, if you follow her, well, a few things. One, she has this like community around her. So there's like that tribe and reflecting back. And then when I think about like her health journey, I feel like it's so similar to so many of us, right? Where it's like, you tried the plant-based thing, there's like some disordered eating, chronic like illness is such a big thing for so many people, right? It's like, and then she just kind of talks about like how she's feeling, and it really resonates with people.
Mm.
Um, so that's like kind of a more accessible example.
Wow.
Um, I've also heard Sandra Bullock as a reflector, but that one's like, I don't know. It's like, do we really know Sandra Bullock? I don't know. It's hard to
No,
say.
she doesn't. But that one makes sense. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So thanks for that. And like, I'm curious. I'm just, I know we're short on time, but I mean, do you want to talk? I feel like if we go into all the authorities, we're going to be in trouble time wise.
totally. Can I ask? Well, I'll say what authority is, and then I would actually love to hear your experience of a splenic authority if you're willing to share.
I'll do my
Yeah.
best.
Okay. So we won't get to all the authorities because there's quite a number. There's a number of them. But authority is the voice of your intuition. It's going to be kind of the energy center that you have defined that is the strongest within you. So, for example, if you have your emotional center defined, there's always emotional energy generating from you. And so, if that's your authority, you would want to wait until you have emotional clarity, because that's going to be kind of the energy that's in charge of what's going on with you. If you're a generator or an MG and you don't have an emotional center defined, so that brown triangle on the right is white, then your loudest energy will be your sacral energy. So you really want to listen to what's lighting you up. Um, there's another type of authority called the splenic authority, and the spleen is it's aware and instinctive. So it's what evolved to help us survive. So where the spleen is also where all of our fears reside, because in being fearful about, you know, uh, death or struggle or whatever, we were able to remember what was going to work, what was going to be successful. And it can be a little bit, sometimes I tell people this and they're like, wait, I still don't really understand how this is different from like a thought. And so I want to emphasize the instinctive knowing is, it's like a layer deeper. It's almost like subconscious. So it's like the instinct that like a salmon has to like swim upriver. Like, how does it know that? It doesn't like consciously know that. It just knows it like in its bones,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Um, so having your splenic authority just means like when you know something is right for you, you just know it, like
Yeah.
sub your logical
Yeah.
process. Have you felt your splenic awareness come through in any big moments, Cassie?
When I met my boyfriend now, I was like, I know I'm gonna marry him. Like it
Mm,
was a knowing. Um, it came once. I can't recreate that sensation again.
mm,
The same as when I met Christina, or when I first listened to her on a podcast like 4 years ago. I knew I would be on a podcast, didn't know how. For me, it comes more like when it's big decisions. It's really hard for smaller things because they're not really life or death.
mhm,
But like, I definitely, if I meet someone and I've never been wrong on my instincts, they could be outwardly um, appear a certain way, but I'm like, my whole body will give me a. Mine feels very in the body, like one time, like, and it would just feel um like a threat, or like a, or stay away, like as if there were, as
mm,
if I was a snake in nature, or as if I was a bird in nature and I'd seen a snake. You would just be like,
mhm.
no. And usually with directions, I never follow maps. I just walk around and like, I feel like it's that way, it's that way, and I never get
Yeah.
lost. I always end up in the right place. So yeah, but not with small decisions. And because it's so ingrained, like it feels like your intuition. That's the only way I can describe it. And then
Mhm,
afterwards, then I question it. But because it's
mhm.
only coming once, I really have to trust that first instinct. It's the only way I can describe it.
I love that. I especially love what you said about the snake because to me, this isn't like in the human design literature, but to me, when I describe the spleen to myself, when I was trying to like wrap my head around it, it is like it's like the nervous system. It's like that fight or
It
flight, the
is.
ability to fight or flight. Not that we're always in the sympathetic like that, but that was really helpful, I think. And then to the directions piece, I want to say I feel like that actually is more related to having a defined G center for you because I have a defined spleen and I have no sense of direction.
Oh,
Um, but there's also something there too, because the G center is all about having like knowing who you are, your I amness, and that's really strong for you, Cassie.
oh, yay.
Because it's also like the two personality gates in your incarnation cross are coming from the G center, the 10 and the 15. Um, and then you also have the channel 1-8, which is all about like self-expression. Like that's also there for you. So you having a podcast makes so much sense because you're like creating something, you're talking about it, you're expressing yourself.
Yeah, but if I'm tired,
Mm,
I don't have it, and then suddenly it'll come, boom, and I'm ready to do it, and I'll do it there, and then I won't do it. Like, and I can't create a podcast from thought. It comes from my nervous system
mm,
always. Like, nervous system is totally right because I feel it like fight or flight. That's so interesting.
mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so I have 5 minutes. So I'm thinking, what can we do in 5 minutes that's useful for human design for people who've just looked at their charts?
Yeah, okay. So if you just look at your chart, you want to find your type, and we just talked all
Manifesting
about that.
style. What about
Oh,
that?
benefits.
No, I mean like manifesting style, because someone could look at their chart
Oh,
now and know.
yes, yes. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
go
misunderstood.
on.
Yeah, so if you look at your chart, the bottom right hand arrow, so it's going to be in black, um, will either be facing left or right. And left is the more masculine approach, and right is the more feminine approach. And this arrow corresponds with your manifestation style. So if you have a left facing arrow, like Cassie, you do, um, it's supportive to the way you envision your future to have more structure. And again, this is like the archetypal masculine. So sometimes you'll hear it's specific versus non-specific, which is true, but there's like a lot. I want to go to kind of like the basics so you can interpret what it means to you. Because for some people, I talk to specifics and they're like, oh no, I don't know exactly what I want. Like, should I be concerned? And it's like, no, 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 it's fine. As long as you have a more masculine approach, which can also be just more active, more logical, more detail oriented. So you can not have an idea of what you want, but if you're thinking about for like, what would be the steps that I'd want to take? Or how can I how can I take a more active process in, let's say you want to manifest like more money next year. Having a plan like I want, to 2x next year and then 2x the year after and so forth. That's actually really helpful for the specific manifestor for the left facing arrow. However, and this is great because like this is also how I think most of us have been taught to like plan and goal set and whatever. However, if your arrow is going to the right, you are what's called non-specific or more feminine in your approach. And so you're the opposite. You're someone who doesn't necessarily know the steps you want to take to get to what you want. It's more mysterious, it's more receptive. The way something comes to you could just be so unexpected. Or maybe you think you have an idea of what you want and you write it down, but the thing that comes through is completely different. You would have never been able to think of it on your own, and yet it's like even better than what you wanted. And so that's the more feminine approach where we surrender a little bit more to the manifestation process, still have a really clear idea of what you want, but you can kind of not have to be in control of the process. You don't need to be the boss. You can just kind of like have an idea and then be like, okay, whatever comes through is great.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So basically, you guys need to go and get a reading with Victoria. I'm booking mine. So I'm really excited. So I know everyone's going to love you and want to connect with you. So do you want to tell them how they can do that and how they can get a reading?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram, and it's at Vital Becoming. And yeah, just DM me and we'll figure out the details. And I would love to connect and read your chart. There's so many layers to it. And so really, whatever situation's going on in your life, if you want more clarity around anything, I love talking to people about this. And it's truly like just such a joy to see people light up when they recognize like, yeah, this is like really what's authentic to how I want to be.
I love that. I love that. I get the same in astrology. Like people just go, "Oh, this is why I'm like I am." I'm like, "Yay!"
Hmm.
um, so thank you so much, Victoria, for coming on the podcast. And yeah, I hope this one records. It's
If not, that's also okay. But thank you so much. This is so fun, and it's so nice to meet all your listeners.
oh, thank you, and see you soon.
Bye.